stream. I'm going to start the show. Are we on Twitch?
Twitch has started.
Great.
Now recording.
Welcome to the Yanggang Roundtable. It's Saturday, December 5th, 2020. I have with me Ariel, Faydoni, Fayku, Mia. Welcome back, Mia. It's been a minute. And our guest today is Jacob Hanson. Jacob, welcome to the show. We are a basic income advocacy podcast. Would you please tell us about yourself?
Hey, yeah, thank you for having me. So I'm Jacob Hanson. I'm one of the organizers at Unemployed Action and our sister site, extendpoa.org. We are a digital-first organization born out of the need to empower unemployed workers to lobby elected officials to create safe workplaces, good-paying jobs, at least $15 an hour with benefits, and we need to make these jobs equally accessible to all people, regardless of age, race, immigration status, religion, or disability.
So that's great. Thank you for that work. That's wonderful. When you say you're a lobby, I'd like to hear more about that. So you're a lobby in the same way like the gun lobby is, or like, Big Pharma is a lobby. Would you say that's correct? Not that you are evil, but mechanically.
I mean,
funny how those things are linked in your mind inextricably.
Sure. Yes. No accusation intended. Just let's hear about this. This is interesting.
So we getting put on the spot right away here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
You can pass if you want.
Oh,
Say
no,
pass.
It's fine. I mean, one of the things that we have going on right now is...
I invited him.
I'm teasing. I'm so sorry. Get on with it, man. I'm sorry.
Getting a little hot under the collar here.
I'm so sorry.
It's all good. So, yeah, one of the things that we're doing right now is setting up meetings with senators so that their constituents can actually talk with them about the struggles that they've been going through this year, how they have had to rely on unemployment benefits that are, especially in Republican states, pretty stingy. And so we get constituents connected with senators.
That's what I wanted to hear.
So that they can share.
That's fantastic because I hear so many well-meaning, well-funded, well-organized, generally well-run organizations come through here with the sort of one flaw. There's no address of the mechanical disconnect, of where the people aren't heard, aren't addressed sometimes, with some organizations. And you go right at the mechanical disconnect in our system of government, where you are taking people to Congress, you are lobbying Congress directly for the needs of people, and that's really heartening to hear.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm sorry for interrupting you if you had more of your introduction. I just wanted to, that was an interesting way of phrasing it, lobbying.
We do a lot of lobbying as well, Shale.
Yeah, we
are also lobbyists whenever we go to Congress.
Mm-hmm. Sheridan called his congressman on the stream the other day.
There you go. We can up our game by actually requesting a live audience, but maybe not during coronavirus time. This might be the best we can do sometime.
No, but I do plan to start doing calls to Congress on our streams, particularly when Congress is not in session, so we can just leave it on their machine. It's really low pressure, and they have to listen to it, ostensibly. And at least, if they don't listen to it, maybe our audience will.
Yeah, I love that. No,
but we should have a lobbying session one day where all we do is call people. Yeah,
I'm
right.
serious. We're going to start doing more than one of those.
Jacob, you're already inspiring us to action.
Yeah.
I love it.
We're all trying to figure out what to do, and you're figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is kind of how the pandemic has changed the nature of organizing. It is so much easier now that we are all at home to get people to hop into a Zoom. Normally, if you're limited to a brick and mortar organizing shop, you might get 30 people in a single town to come to something like a labor organizing meeting. But when you're able to open things up on Zoom, like we're a national organization, so we can bring in people from all over. And one of the things that I've really loved in my time here, one of the things that really refills my cup is getting to talk to people who have never seen themselves as a quote unquote organizer and helping them see how they can plug their past experiences into like an organizer's resume. Like if you fundraise at your kid's school, you are an organizer,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
I've never done any political thing in my life other than this, so I am an organizer, but only in the most literal and broad sense.
That's so important because I mean, like you do volunteer work at a school, but they never translate that into like your adult life. If you think that something's fishy or something's not making sense, here's how you get people together and here's how they listen. None of that. So important because I mean, like our country was founded on no taxation without representation, which I think it's all come full circle. We are getting taxed without any representation.
Can you get a little closer to your mic, Ariel? I'm sorry, but you're cutting out. You're very quiet. Yeah.
It's probably because of
That's
the
much better.
Hang on.
That's much better.
Let me say that that our country was founded on the idea of no taxation without representation. And did you hear my part I had to say about the schools? The schools, maybe you do some volunteer work, or maybe they send you to like when you're in high school, maybe they'll send you to teach middle school kids, or like when you're in college, you teach like a high school science class or something like that. Like you volunteer that, but they don't talk about like how you make change in a society. Like schools don't talk about that. They just say like be nice and volunteer for some cause you might believe in, but they never tell you how to organize it. They never tell you how the organization works. So I said that this country we organized this country on the whole idea of no taxation without representation. It's like, why do we pay our taxes? Because, you know, we are the government and we want our taxes to be helping like our fellow citizens with the troubles and the problems and the stresses and the anxieties they have, and like contributing to the common good. But it looks like what we're getting right now, I said it's come full circle. We are getting taxed without representation, and that's what we're all here to talk about. It's like these policies and these ideas do not represent us, and we're all here saying that then what are we paying? Because the government is basically like our public sector employees, and if they're not doing their jobs and constantly going on vacations and not giving us what we want, why have they been hired in the first place? Like, yeah.
So I noticed that you had shared a couple of links with us before, Mr. Hanson.
Yeah.
And I remember that you were hoping to share some of the points that were enumerated in the first article that I put up here in our live stream is from American Progress, and it talks about how to strengthen unemployment protections in America.
Yeah. So the Center for American Progress did a great series of proposed UI reforms back in 2015, and now the pandemic has actually rushed some of these reforms into law, if only temporarily. Like companies hire temp and contract workers to fulfill critical roles, and in doing so, these workers receive lower wages and weaker benefits packages, sometimes upwards of 10% of the of what the company is paying for that worker gets routed to the temp agency instead. So you can end up making a significantly lower wage and have significantly less job security if you are going through as a temp worker. You're kind of hoping for like the golden goose, like the golden egg job that leads to regular full-time work at that company instead of going through the usual like promotional structure. Like you're set behind if you start out
Jacob,
as a temp worker.
Do seasonal workers fall under that?
I I'm not sure if seasonal workers are covered under the CARES Act. It is the CARES Act that brought these workers, like
Oh yeah,
gig workers
yeah.
and temp workers, into the fold when they were previously excluded from UI entirely, even though they were paying into the system.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. Because I don't know. Because when I was a seasonal worker, I was still considered an employee, so it wasn't actually like contract. So yeah. But still, I think.
Yeah, so you were happy with that expansion because this is something that you've been seeking for a while, is to expand out to people who are still employed, but they're underemployed or they're not being paid, according to their actual abilities for their, as a full-time worker would be. So you were happy with the fact that, for example, a tutor who's like me, who was working like maybe 2 hours a week because I only had 2 students for a minute, that I would have been included in those unemployment benefits when I lost my job.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And let's see. Similar things apply to gig workers like rideshare and delivery drivers. We actually just saw with Proposition 22 in California, which Uber and Lyft poured around $200 million in funding into. Workers lost the opportunity to be classified as regular employees. This left rideshare and delivery drivers earning less than minimum wage with no paid leave and fewer worker protections. And the protections that
As I understood it during the pandemic, transportation workers like Uber drivers and such were classified as essential workers and therefore forced to continue working even if they were afraid of catching the virus. Is that true, or?
I'm not sure about that specifically. But I do know that the protections that were offered under the CARES Act are actually set to expire the day after Christmas, and a lot of the people who are receiving benefits under the CARES Act have already depleted those benefits, and they are being removed from the UI
So
status
what is
early.
your thoughts? What are your thoughts on universal basic income?
I definitely like the idea. One of the things that I worry about is that every entitlement program is competing with the other entitlement programs, like say housing kind of competes for political capital and resources with SNAP benefits. UI gets put into the same boat. So I've heard of some people not qualifying for SNAP because of how much they get from their UI benefit. And that's one of the spaces where states have a lot of individual flexibility in setting those rates. So I like the idea of universal basic income being more of a catch-all benefit.
What kind
But
of
I wonder
cautionary
about
measures? What kind of cautionary measures do you think we need to take?
cautionary measures
Um,
to
if we had UBI, like what kind of things do you think we would need to do in order to make sure we don't have like snafus between other programs? I mean, I know we've like the talk is to get rid of a bunch. Like, what kind of things do we need to be mindful of?
Well, I would hope that the introduction of a universal basic income would not result in any kind of cuts to existing programs because it is fulfilling a slightly different need. So, like, if you
In
get,
that
say,
case, what do you think if we don't cut any of the other benefits, would you be looking at like an opt-in situation? Like, would you still give up some of those benefits if you opt into UBI, or would you say the UBI should maybe be at a different level of right now we've looked at $1,000 a month with Andrew Yang when he was running for president, and we're now looking at $2,000 a month, which is the new consensus. Seems to be the proposals from everybody in the House and the Senate in terms of a real cash stimulus during the pandemic. What type would you be looking at? A smaller amount, don't replace any of the existing programs, or would you, just give it as an option? Andrew Yang thought we would offer this as an option, and people would opt into it if they felt that it was a better alternative than some of the other programs that are existing now.
You're very quiet, Shale.
Thank you. I had instead of pressing the 2 separate software mutes, I thought it would be clever if I turned my volume physically down, but that was a mistake, clearly. Anyway, no, yeah, it's interesting. So many rush to the defense of these programs, but they are not ever the people who've utilized these programs. I've utilized SNAP, I've utilized Medicaid. They're good to have when you don't have anything, but they're inferior to cash in most ways. A SNAP is inferior to cash in pretty much every way. Medicaid is, that's kind of a different thing. Healthcare is its own system, and everyone should have single-payer healthcare. But I have no crushing fear of losing some of our welfare program, because some of the welfare program we have is wasteful, it's inefficient, it doesn't serve the people it's intended to. And I'm not talking about taking those government resources away from the needy, but I'm just talking about putting in programs that succeed rather than ones that fail to serve their constituents. That's all. And it's alarming to see people. This is not an accusation. I'm not saying this is you. It's just I sometimes see people in this new political climate, waving the progressive banner, saying we can't lose any of our precious welfare. We must keep it as is and build on it. And no trimming can ever happen. It's just the welfare is like the terminus of our progressive goal. And it's really losing the forest from the trees, right? Because, you're forgetting the entire purpose of the welfare when the terminus is to preserve it. But it's also, for some of them, the more bad faith, it's a real tipping of the hand, because, they might be financially invested in the cottage industry around the poverty industrial complex. A lot of people are. Or they might need to keep it going to win re-election because they're tangentially connected to someone who is. It's a kind of a small world financially. And it's the unfortunate thing here.
I would like to add something.
So my question was more directed to Jacob. And I was hoping that Jacob would be able to answer whether he feels that you would have UBI as an alternative, where you would just kind of opt into that and then give up your SNAP and maybe unemployment, stuff like that. Or would you say set the UBI at a rate that would be, to be on top of whatever else you're getting? How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm not really presenting myself as a policy expert here, but I would, my personal feeling would be, let's have it be an additional benefit, because the welfare programs that we have in place now are not enough to fulfill the needs of the people on them. People are still struggling, especially now that the additional 600 has been taken away, and the quote bipartisan proposal that is being debated on the floor right now, that hopefully there's some movement on before the Senate goes home on the 10th for the holiday. Those benefits will still leave millions of people struggling to pay their rent and buy groceries in the same week. So I would not want to see anyone be asked
What would
to...
be like an appropriate amount then?
I don't know.
So what would be an appropriate amount then if it's just something on top of it? Could $600 per person be an appropriate UBI at that level if you were just giving it, in addition to whatever people were already receiving?
That's beyond my level of understanding.
Because they come up with 600. Oh, okay. No problem. No problem. You don't have to have an opinion just because we ask you a question. Yes. Okay. Have you said hi to Mia yet? Mia just joined us as we were starting, and Mia is a wonderful mom. She is also very, very busy because she also volunteers a lot of her time with Humanity First Movement and Humanity Forward. And I love that she's on camera with us. Mia, do you have any questions for our guest?
I could follow up on some of the stuff that I just heard when I walked in, but I didn't get to catch a lot of it because there was a two-person parenting moment in my household before I got in here, so I was a little distracted. I could ask,
Well,
would you be?
Let me catch you up. Let's start. I think what we do sometimes is we come in and we start socializing a little bit, and then we say, "Oh, let's hit the button. Let's start the podcast." But we forget that our listeners and maybe somebody just joining us, like Mia, have not actually heard the introduction. So I'd love to hear how Ariel actually met Jacob and was able to invite him to our show, and we can start there, and then Mia will be caught up.
Okay.
On how we got.
So going again, I joined a group called Unemployed Action because they were fighting to extend the $600. And then I made a really, really intelligent post about like how it does, like people think that like unemployed people, oh, they just don't want work, they just don't want to do this. But I said, look, I graduated from university. I got a job that I could do as a someone who didn't even graduate high school, because that was just the way the economy is. And then when I went into furthering myself, and I did one of those training programs that everybody keeps talking about, training for a job. Still, either like it was very hard to get a job, or all the jobs you could get would just want you for 300 hours, or just as seasonal, and there was no stability. So I said, even before this pandemic, things were really, really terrible, and now it's just made it even worse. And people really liked that post that I made, so I became a moderator for the group, and that's where we have these meetings, and that's where me and Jacob met.
Jacob, are you part of the organizers of this group, or you're just participating as another fellow human being there?
So I started out kind of as a volunteer, much like Ariel did, but I've taken on a lot of responsibilities in my time there. So I'm definitely one of the organizers there. And yeah, we're a digital first organization. We popped up during the pandemic, working around the restrictions of not really being able to do much in-person organizing or on the street organizing. So we do our work through Zoom, Slack, the Google Suite. We've reached a lot of people through peer-to-peer texting programs like Hustle. We like our peer-to-peer texting is one of our main ways of reaching new people, expanding our base, and getting our message out there. And it's a really like low stakes way to reach tens of thousands of people. So to be on the receiving end of one of those political texts, I know can bring up some negative feelings in people, especially if you're in a state like Arizona that was getting totally hammered by political texting. But it has been a really effective way for us to build our base, and we bring in a lot of new people that way, get a lot of new people like newly activated, calling their senators through those texting programs.
That's really cool. Is it similar to like minivan and things like that that are being used by various political organizations?
We use NGP van, yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. Okay, very. So it's cool that you guys have figured out how to use it to your benefit. How are you guys feeling about what's happening in Georgia right now? Is that something that you're concerned with? Do you care which party wins whatsoever? Do either one of them like give you a better, a better feeling about getting the things that you want passed?
Oh, absolutely. We are going hard getting people to phone bank and volunteer in Georgia. A lot of our volunteers are working on that right now. We've kind of scaled back on some of our own advocacy efforts to pivot towards helping folks out in Georgia. Because if the Georgia Senate is split and we end up like 49-51, then Mitch McConnell holds on to the reins. He can pass whatever skinny proposals he wants to. It may not have any worker protections, any extended benefits at all. It could be something that's like strictly there to help small businesses. That's one of the things that we saw in one of the proposals that was floated this week. I'm personally really excited about the American Workers Holiday Relief Act, but that doesn't have very many co-sponsors at the moment. That would extend the 600 through to, I believe it was September of next year. And one of the really cool things about that program is it would have automatic stabilizers in it, something I'm really excited about. That would say the program, like the states would be able to stay on the program. The individuals would be able to stay on their unemployment rolls until there was a 3-month average of both the federal and state unemployment rates. Like 5.5% was what they had come to. So this program would, in theory, it looks like, keep the unemployed, like the extended benefits rolling out to people until the economy had fully rebounded from the pandemic, which would be amazing.
And you trust that a Democratic majority would pass that?
I would hope so.
I don't think they would.
To
is
say
my
that
thing.
to say that I trust any politician would be a
No,
stretch,
it's like, you know, I know the Republicans certainly won't, and I feel like the Democrats probably won't, and that's kind of where we are. So it's hard to be enthused about Georgia, you know. That's where I feel.
I think we have to stay enthused about Georgia, because if we don't get those 2 seats so that like
enthused or not,
the
working
vice president
together.
can up or down vote,
Hmm.
then we don't really get to do any of the things that progressives have been talking about.
I know, but it's like, we're probably not going to, even if we do, is the my thinking. So it's hard to be excited about it. I don't know. Maybe I really hope I'm wrong, you know?
Well, we've got to take every chance that we get.
If you have the energy.
And I know that I've heard some people, like the way that Trump is saying that the election was fraud and things like that, that is really demotivating to their base in Georgia. So that is a great opportunity for us to go in and motivate our base. And like that.
Yeah, it's as great an
Makes it
opportunity.
look like the Senate would then lean in our favor, because if Republicans are actively demotivating their base, then Democrats should absolutely be in there motivating their base to pick up that loss that the president is creating by undermining people's faith in democracy, undermining people's faith in the power of their votes.
If nothing else, I would like the Democrats, if they have a majority, to have to explain why they're not getting things done with something other than, well, we don't have a majority. So that would at least be a modicum of progress. That's guaranteed, you know? So it feels like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, while Mitch McConnell is holding the ropes in the Senate, he has full control over what makes it onto the floor for debate or for a vote.
That's like,
and that really...
Yeah, he does. He's awful. He's a monster, but it's like, which lich do you want to hold the reins? Which gatekeeper do you want to stop you? You know, Mitch or Nancy, take your pick. They're going to do the same thing.
I I think when I'm in Georgia, I'm gonna really strive so hard to get a conversation with either one of them. If it, like, not, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, just even if I have to go to DC next after Georgia, like, I need to talk to these people. We need to talk to these people. We have so much information that we have gathered by this podcast alone from so many sources. It would be hard for them to deny us, right?
Oh, they're
Like,
so good at
please
denying
watch
us, though.
my podcast.
Mhm. Denying
Like,
us is
that would be the minimum I would request of them, right? Just like choose one. Choose one. I bet your eyes are gonna like blast open, okay? Just come on. But I think if they physically meet somebody who introduces this concept and gets conversation, but anyway. Am I glitching?
I mean, I think they'll
glitching?
Yeah, a bit. I think what'll happen is they'll smile and they'll glad hand you and they'll
By the way,
you
I
know.
don't know if we're streaming to Twitch right now.
No. Wait. Faye, Koo, are you streaming to Twitch?
I've been streaming to Twitch, but it doesn't seem to be on. So
Okay.
I've been working on it ever since I got the message. I
All right.
didn't want to interrupt the stream on what you guys.
Josh has to help us. We gotta figure this logistics shit out, huh? I just cursed. That's gonna help. Nobody cares.
But like
Everybody
this is
gets
what we're
like,
going
yeah.
back to.
Mhm.
This is why I invite people like Josh, because they're so organized and they have their stuff together. And I don't want this to seem like unemployment and UBI are like butting heads, because first of all, the thing is that I'm talking about UBI because there are a lot of people, and it's very unfair that if you were lining up a job when this pandemic happened and you already exhausted your unemployment, which almost happened to me, but thank God it didn't, you only got that $1,200 check and you didn't see those $600 payments because you were, or maybe it was your third day on a job that you just got before this pandemic started, and you didn't accumulate enough money, so you didn't qualify for unemployment. How is that fair? So that's the thing. It's like we can't leave people behind. And also what UBI is going to do is that if there are employers out there who want to take advantage of you and say like, what the hell are you going to do? You have nothing. And I know that, so I'm just going to pay you as little as possible, not you treat you well. There's a UBI floor that says, I can still look for better people. I don't have to settle for you. But like UBI is a way, because I'm gonna repeat what Scott Sanson says. A union, like an individual worker, they said is like a stick. It can easily crack. But a union is like a bundle of sticks. It can't crack that easily because you have more negotiating power. Now, a person with UBI is pure negotiating power right out of the gate. Now you add 10 people with that's like a steel rod. And then you add 10 people with UBI who create a union, that's like a bundle of steel rods. So that's why it's so important, because everybody talks about what happens after you get laid off and after you didn't have a job and how you're treated like that, or how workers are treated. Nobody talks about that job seeker who just graduated from university and is applying and can't get unemployment because they never had their first job in the first place, and their first job wants to see some job history. So they're unemployed without unemployment, and they're not being hired because they don't have any experience. Why aren't we talking about those people? And I think UBI is one of the things that can help those people out the most. Younger people, millennials like me, not boomers who had a factory job and stuff, but it'll help them too because it goes to everyone. So what do you think about that, Josh?
Jacob, not Josh.
Oh, sorry, Jacob.
It's okay.
Got my Jacob.
Yeah, it's all good. You were reminding me of the job seekers allowance there, which is another program separate from UBI. That is one of the proposals I've seen to improve people's ability to access the job market in the first place. So the job seekers allowance was a proposal that would really target college students in particular. It's a really small benefit in the proposals that I've seen, only like $170 a week.
Okay.
But
that makes a big difference to people who
Better
get
than
nothing. Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Big difference from
Yeah,
zero.
yeah. I
Because
remember.
Not that it's
I
enough.
just I find it disingenuous with people who already have jobs not caring about the people who are seeking and who don't. And they complain about like, oh, this sucks and that sucks. It's like we're not getting anything, and we like what I can't stand more than anything is getting strung along by in the interview process.
Mm-hmm.
Like saying, oh, apply to this, filling out a whole bunch of paperwork, doing a whole bunch of interviews, and then hearing nothing back. And then people calling you lazy because you don't have work. It infuriates me. It infuriates me because nobody is saying like, look at how much time this person actually put into seeking, into sprucing up their resume, into going through these training programs. And then when you come out the other side with nothing, they call you lazy. And I just want to punch them in the face. That's why I think UBI and stuff like that, because it's not after you get laid off. It's like when you're coming right out of that gate, you're not treated as if you don't matter or that you're nobody because you didn't have your first job and you just graduated, so they can do whatever the hell they want with you.
Yeah, I think UBI would be a massive preference, a way better program than the job seekers allowance. Absolutely. But it's also a much larger financial lift, you know?
Because it's not up to a person, because especially now with right to work laws and everybody just expecting you to be a volunteer and an intern, and they say like, we can't even guarantee a job after you're a volunteer or after you're an intern. But come on, don't be lazy and don't be greedy. You don't need it's like, no, stop, enough. When you're younger, everybody tells you like, no, don't be greedy, don't be lazy, accept less, keep doing this, you have zero negotiating power, and you were like controlled all of your life by a system that always wants to like, get the most out of you with giving you the least. That's the part I have a problem with. And I think that UBI would just say like, hey, you have intrinsic value, because it's like you could like me, I was the best student, I got nothing but A's and B's. I showed up on time, I didn't have any absences, and they keep telling you throughout your life that all these things are important for your financial future and for your work, when it really is, you just give your resume and then they can just give you a generic rejection letter. And then when you call and ask them, why was I rejected, what can I learn, they say, oh, we don't have to talk about that with you, we don't have to. It's like, excuse me, I finished a training program, I got my education, I got my this is not okay. That's a getting thing, because I've been dealing with this, and it doesn't even have to do that I'm financially struggling, because I'm not, and I have my family, but thank God for that. It's a question of dignity. It's a question of like doing what you were told, and following the rules, and ending up, not honored because of the luck of a draw, like a financial crisis just happened that you had nothing to do with and you never contributed to, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, life's going to be way harder for you because of the mistakes other people made, not because of the mistakes you made. Now that's un-American. I get really heated up.
Yeah. I mean, UI was designed in the first place for an economy in which workers had greater job security. And when they lost that job, the general expectation and the thing that usually happened was that they would return to a job in the same field or position. And today, technology and globalization mean that many jobs lost are not going to return in the same way. They're being lost to automation, or in the case of the pandemic, industries like hospitality and travel are being wiped out. We have people in our coalition who are like older or mature workers, and I'm thinking of one in particular who ran her own travel agency business, but she is 63 years old, and that business will not come back in the same way that it was when that business will not return to pre-pandemic levels before her time to like retire. She will not be able to restart her business in the way that she likes before she turns 65. And with the loss of her own clients, she's had to look at some, like, try to find work in other travel agencies as a travel agent. And she built this business herself. She doesn't have a bachelor's degree. She jumped right into this, and she's getting turned down by these other businesses because she lacks that specific credential of a degree when she has decades of experience in the field that just don't translate onto paper in the way that these like applicant tracking systems want to see. And yeah, I think you muted, Ariel.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we gotcha.
Okay, great. So I was always told while I was what by politicians, it was like, you don't you graduate from high school, you get like a service sector job, you know? And if you graduate from college, and damn, if you get a bachelor's degree, you make $1 million more than the other guy who just got some like, typical grunt work job. You get $1 million more over your lifetime, and you don't even have to do that grunt work job. You'll leapfrog the person with a grunt work job if you get your degree in anything. And then when it finally happened, they're like, oh, come on, don't be like that. Accept that service level job, accept that. Come on, you think you're too good? It's like, hang on, you son of a bitch, you told me that this wouldn't happen. You told me
Right.
that like it's like, so it's so easy for the older people to lie and BS and do all this thing when it comes to the younger generation. And when the younger generation calls out the BS, they say you're entitled or you're lazy or you just don't care. Could you imagine that in a corporate contract, or some people treating their customers like that? If you bought a crappy product that didn't work and didn't help you, and then you went back to the corporation to get your refund, and they called you lazy and entitled and you just don't care and stuff like that, you'd never dream of that. But somehow when it comes to like lying to an entire generation, that's seen as normal and okay.
Well, in this current recession and the one that preceded it, we did see a lot of older workers being put in the same boat that you had just described, where they
Mm-hmm.
perhaps had 20 or 30 years of experience, but the jobs that they had previously were no longer available. So they were being told, much like young people are, to go and get that like grunt work job, as you had said, like working the counter at a McDonald's or something like that. We've had a lot of people in this
Right.
economic downturn, along with the last,
Yeah.
being
But
asked to take a massive pay cut and go and do something like
right.
be the cashier at Walgreens or something.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just saying that these empty promises, these platitudes that are given to us, they're not
Mhm.
okay anymore. They're not something. And then all the time we talk about these platitudes and stuff like that, everybody just shrugs their shoulders and says, "Oh well," And I think we're past that point. We cannot shrug our shoulders anymore. We have to address the lies and hypocrisy that come from these things, and how they're actually hurting people. And we have to say enough is enough. Because it's like, if you have this training program, and if you have these degrees, and people are ending up unemployed or underemployed, we shouldn't just laugh at that or just say, oh well, or that's just life. No, like, that's not okay. And we have to address it, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I'm glad we're on the same page. And I think that's why UBI is so important, because it's like when you're in that transition period from schooling to seeking work, it's not like this timer that just runs out and your whole life is just like you're so overwhelmed by how do I just plan for the next day that you just can't be happy with. I mean that's disgusting that as a modern society that this is happening. I mean it just shows like how backwards and primitive things are, and it's about time we addressed it. Because you think that all those people who got those educations or went through those training programs and don't have work, you think they chose not to have work, then you're a complete idiot.
Right.
Just as I've stated, you know.
And one of the things that I like about universal basic income proposals that I've seen is that students are not excluded from those programs, because that's one of the things that we see right now with things like SNAP benefits and UI benefits, is that students are categorically excluded. But
Even from the 1,200, I think like 17-year-olds didn't see a dollar of that.
didn't know about that in particular. But yeah,
It's
I mean,
very
think
important.
about, yeah, go ahead.
Universality of it is like one of the foundational highlights of it, because you can't miss anybody that way. You can't forget anybody that way. If there is somebody who is in need, you don't question them. They just are getting help in case they ever need. And in our society, you can be riding high one day and then be in poverty the next. So having something there to cushion everybody just in case is not a bad idea. And it
Right.
should be an intrinsic
I-
human right.
We have like seatbelt laws and airbags laws. We have like emergency landings. Why do we tell people to wear their seatbelt? We don't tell them wear your seatbelt so you can go 90 miles per hour on the road and crash into somebody, and like that's fine. It's like we're not telling people to crash on purpose. We know that accidents happen. But when financial accidents happen to people, they blame the person instead of this idiotic system that it's happening to people to. It's like if another car crashes into you and totals your car, they're going to say, well, you should have been more careful, even though the other driver was drunk and he wasn't obeying the laws. Now, for my generation, we were told we were being lazy and entitled when it was all the people who did the housing crash and did all those Ponzi schemes on Wall Street, and none of them went to jail. So they crashed this financial car, and we're sitting in the back with all of our injuries, and then we're blamed because we don't like the way that it's happening. That's BS. I'm not buying that anymore.
There's an argument to be made that you could think of UBI as kind of like an insurance program against economic job and hardship. It would definitely soften the blow for a lot of these crises when they come up, and even if you don't need it in that exact moment, you would be in a better position to absorb those blows if you had been getting those payments. So you could argue that it is for the better of society, insurance against societal collapse in the case of these kinds of problems.
And we don't cause the societal collapse because as young people, I never voted for these guys. I never voted for McConnell. I never voted for Pelosi. I never voted for Chuck Schumer. I never voted for these people in charge of all these things. That was the generations before me. So don't blame me for for other people's decisions.
But you would have to also live in those states, or you would have to be, like it's not something that we've been able to get a handle on. The representative democracy is not going the way that we always expected it would.
Yeah,
The original framers probably did
I
not
mean, if
imagine
you're
how
under-
many more people were going to exist in our country
if
very
you're-
soon.
If you're under 18 where you can't vote, and then people voted for boneheads, and then you graduate into a mess, that's like the very definition of like, not your thing. It's like you had no ability to control that because they wouldn't even let you have a voice, and then they force you into a situation that they created with their own incompetence, and then they blame you for being lazy and entitled. That's not okay.
The
Like,
one thing
how
I
do
don't
we
like about
affect,
that
what's
perspective.
happening in Georgia right now? Go ahead, Mia.
The one thing I don't like about that perspective is it does not incline you to want to work forward from there. So if you're blaming like the past generation for the current leadership, then it's not going to be a lot of help to us moving forward if you're not willing to do work on changing that leadership today, on
Yeah, I
working
am.
forward, you know?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Like, don't call millennials entitled and lazy and like all this stuff. While it was like the it wasn't the decisions that we made that led us to this mess. That's what I'm saying. But of course, I'm gonna want to like do my research on what has led us into this mess and make sure it never happens again.
I get what you're saying. I guess what I'm trying to say is focus more on what we can do than worrying about what people who we can't affect the opinion of,
Yeah.
have to say. Because when we make
Well,
actions,
there's
when we do things, when we put forward the work, that shows a lot more to those people that you mean a lot more serious business than it does to be talking at them about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the power
there's also
of
the fact that
organizing.
the fact that Mitch McConnell is being elected or was elected by only the people of Georgia. I mean, but he affects
Kentucky.
what's happening throughout the entire. How could we have decided that? We couldn't have. We had no handle on this particular situation. We didn't get to vote who was going to become the speaker or who
Yeah.
was going to become, the next whip or whoever.
Yeah.
We don't have. So some of these things are really. We don't even have any. We don't have direct democracy, and we don't have the ability to actually affect the changes that we would like to change. And so instead, we're all like, okay, well, how do we help Georgia elect the right person this time?
That's why we have to
That's crazy.
have to grow like local communities and local grassroots, and then find common ground, and then we'll really be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, that's why I invited Jacob to begin with.
Yeah.
It's like we can find if we're not powerful as a grassroots ourselves, we can organize with different grassroots, and then everything that we agree with. And then if it's not changing, we really have to question that. We really have to question what are these systems that don't let it change, and how can we like identify these systems and either change them or find a way around.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to
So
pick up
we
on in
Wait,
Ariel's
had
last
some,
point.
Jacob talk,
Sorry.
please. Let's see.
Okay.
Go
just
ahead.
It's okay. We
that
had
you
some
had
issues with our
mentioned.
Twitch stream, and so I was bringing that up to let you know. And I also wanted to introduce you to another member of our podcast who just joined us. His name is Joshua Easlick, and Josh, we appreciate you showing up today. We were wondering, because we had some issues with the Twitch stream before, if you would be willing to do that introduction again, Ariel, for everybody, because now Mia and Josh are both here attendant.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Right. So basically what I did is that I went into the unemployment action group because I thought the extension of the $600 was a good idea. And then I made a really, really prevalent post that hit a lot of nerves. I'm too tired to repeat the whole thing again. So that post was like a good post, and then people liked it, and I became a moderator for the group. I was in on a conversation, and that's where me and Jacob met. So there you go.
Well,
Yep,
thank
I'm
you
one
for
of the organizers at
yeah.
Unemployed Action, and I wanted to pivot back to something that Ariel had mentioned in the last point about kind of young people competing or like feeling powerless and like at the whims of previous generations. One of the proposals I saw this year that picked up steam around the time of the Green New Deal. I'm forgetting the name of the proposal, the Green New Deal resolution. That's what it was called in the House. And one of the arguments that was popping up around the time of all of that activism was lowering voting age to 16. That would enfranchise millions and millions of new people and really expand the base. So I wanted to kind of put that forward as an idea and see where the roundtable sits on that?
I'd be in favor of that.
Ron Yang's platform,
yeah.
right?
I think you understand how much you are affected by the government well before age 16, and you're already driving a car. So I think if I'm going to give you the power to, mow down whatever you might decide to with that kind of a vehicle, if you choose to, I'm okay giving you the power to throw in your voice for who leads the country.
Right.
Yeah, we're making a lot of decisions about the future of the country that will impact these younger generations, and the people who are voting on these things right now
The
will
sad thing
be
is
gone
that
by the time
I
the consequences of those actions come around, especially
right.
when it comes to climate change.
I thought of one
The sad
before
thing is
we move
that-
on. I just want to say one other advantage. I want to make sure we cover the real big advantage. I think societally for allowing people to vote at 16 is that when you are that age, you are forming patterns that you will repeat your entire life. You're exponentially more likely to vote again if you vote at 16 for the first time than probably even 18. And if the next presidential election happens when you're 20, that could be a big difference. If you would have voted when you were 16, but you waited till you were 20, and then because you hadn't voted, you didn't vote again, that could become a lifetime. So it makes a big difference in the health of our nation, but it doesn't take effect for a long time. So you have to think very long term to see that particular benefit. Okay, Ariel, sorry for cutting you off. I know you had something to say, so please, or Mia, or anybody.
Yeah, I think it's sad. Wait, I'll remember. Go ahead, Mia.
I just wanted to add in on the voting thing. My 14-year-old son is definitely a lot more informed about politics than a lot of my people my age, people older than me, people, way older than me. It's really the people who end up voting are the people who are more informed, who are paying attention. So one could only assume that the 16-year-olds who choose to go out and vote will likely be paying attention to the voting process and have informed opinions. That's just generally the way that works. It's very hard to get 16-year-olds to go out and do anything in mass for no reason. That doesn't involve partying. So
Right, and
Say
them being still in high school when the voting is taking place, and voting taking place on the first Tuesday in November, imagine the kind of infrastructure and education that we could build into the system around that to make sure that they are really well informed about the process. And I mean, the teachers in just our civics education is pretty weak here, and this would be a really amazing way to bolster it.
And it's sad that schools are such, like, in my opinion, like undemocratic places where we don't really have it's just like, okay, this is your homework, these are your assignments, this is what I want you to read, go home, bye, come back, do the same thing. And it's like, where's the democracy? you know like education, and it should be
I'm 100%.
go ahead, Fania.
I couldn't hear that you were speaking, actually.
You didn't hear
There
me?
was something I didn't the last part of
Oh, okay.
I couldn't hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so I said, could all of you hear me? Oh my God. Okay. So I said, where's the democracy in our schools where like everything is controlled, everything is like, a top-down structure. I think it's high time we have about like not just student government is like vote for class president, this and you're done. Just like one class where students can learn, and it's not just group projects. It's like, what is your opinion on what we're changing like in the classroom or like school policies, and what do you all think, and let's see if we can implement that. But it's all top down from like D to the state to the local school system. That's not democracy. Where the hell is the input of the actual students going through all of it? Oh, they're too young and can't be, bullshit.
you want to see more student representation, like
Yeah, there's zero student representation. It's grotesque.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, like we don't want kindergartners going in and representing themselves.
Yeah, no, not that, but like maybe I trust them more. What when if they show that they can do like household chores in a responsible, like good, meaningful way, and if they were given a responsibility that they really knocked out of the park and they were good at, and they knew, and they showed themselves to be like responsible people, yeah, you should be able to
So,
have to like
I-
practice a little bit of representation at some point.
I want to stop and bring up something real quick, though. Aren't we having children represent them in ICE detention facilities? Is that propaganda? Is that real? Like children actually trying to represent themselves in these I forget what they call them, but like that is something that's happening,
That is
right?
real. Yes, that's real.
And yet, like, if we can anticipate these children to represent themselves, we can't have our citizens that are children, right? Like, we obviously can see the error in that thought process. Why the hell are we doing that? Like, I know it's unrelated to this particularly, but like, I did want to bring that up. Like, that's even more important, right?
It's
That's
part of the
their
thought
life.
cloud. It's part of the thought cloud.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think Josh can speak because like he's Native American and his people were here first, and like they didn't get any representation. Like they were never asked what their opinion was on like what to do with the land and stuff like that. So and it's funny, like the same things that we think that the United States does to like other countries and other nations and stuff, where they like don't take their opinions into account and they just like go in and invade. But we don't see how like older generations somehow do that to younger generations. They like it's the same cycle of like older people just like like putting down like their thoughts and their opinions, shoving it down the younger generation's throat just because, and using like, oh, you don't know any better anyway. And I just think that that's a pattern that like has to stop. We have to show that like young people have a voice and they are people, and like, and I say how many parents take the time to tell their kids to study but never take the time to study their kids. Right? It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And that's it. Just
Would Josh actually like to speak to this?
Oh,
Jacob?
yeah, I'm just trying to. Still kind of waking up. I apologize. My mic was on the fritz a little bit. I think it's just all just a control mechanism. That's all it is. Like they're just trying to control the kids, control the population. So it's just that's how I perceive it as. It's they don't want anybody to take the control from them that they've acquired over the time. So still trying to wake up. Apologize.
It's power. No, that's fine, Josh. It's a power dynamic.
Yeah, it's a power game. That's all it is. They put these policies in place so they can't lose any of their power at their time. So,
Well, because if you think of what
The way that the reason that we can do this, is because we who are not like us, or people who are not, we don't feel are powerful enough, to have any real say in things. And I feel like that's where we started out wrong in the beginning, where we said, okay, some people are savages because they're not Christians and they don't believe the way that we do. They don't understand civilization, so they don't need to have a say in it. And then we dehumanize humans, non-landowners. Oh, I'm sorry. Then we say, okay, we're going to we also don't consider human enough or important enough or having enough brain power to actually, make decisions if you don't own land. Okay, then only landowners can make decisions, and of course we're excluded because since they never own anything, how can they make any decisions? They don't know how to. They don't know how to think.
exactly what
And
it is.
so it comes coming down slowly now. We've provided all these different groups with different with the suffrage, with the ability to actually make decisions and do important things, except for children, because artificially we've picked an age, and this is the age at which every single person all of a sudden becomes an actual human being. And prior to that, we can just make decisions for them because they're not smart enough and they don't know enough and they don't own enough property in order to actually make those decisions. So it's the same argument that's been used over and over, and we just need to recognize that same pattern over and over again and break it.
Yeah, so if we had a system where like children were actually brought up in a democratic system early on, it would empower them to actually help with society even further. So I'm trying to look at it from that. It's like they don't want that. They want that complete control system on the student. So, but then when the student becomes an adult, they can't really. They're just learning about participating in it now. But like, if they grew up in it, how effective they would be as a student or as a human being, it would be amazing.
Yeah, voter
Yeah.
turnout amongst people, say like 18 to 24, is typically the lowest. It was better this year. Like the participation amongst that age group was the highest it's ever
Right.
been. But
Because
Even if they don't
imagine
feel
just
empowered at
consistent.
all.
Yeah.
right.
So
It-
it could consistently be at a much higher level if we had the kind of civil education and lower voting age. And like even the kids could be put into a position where they go home after their civil education and get their parents excited to vote in the same way and increase turnout on that front as well. Because like I I personally went to register to vote on my 18th birthday with my mom. She did a good job of educating me on my kind of civic duty there, but I know that is not the norm at all.
right. And a lot of reasons young people aren't voting is because they don't see how it's going to really change or affect something like significant or good in their lives, because maybe it's confusing, maybe it just doesn't make sense, maybe it's because maybe it's like one corporation against another corporation. It's like, why should I vote for that? It's not going to do anything to like really help me. But like Andrew Yang activated like a ton of young people because he said like, hey, you're coming out of the gate just like screwed and you have no representation. And we were like, you're damn right. Like it just felt like that. And I also want to say a lot of times, and this is why I invited Jacob here, is because like people can get so entrenched in their echo chambers that nothing really happens. And this is how the powerful people hold on to their power. You got like MSNBC on one side and like Fox News on another side. So maybe let's say the Fox News crowd would say like UBI is the best idea, and these unemployment insurance people, like we shouldn't be listening to them, like they're all like crazy and they just want like a handout. And then MSNBC goes like, oh, the UI people are like so intelligent and these UBI people like are a bunch of like liberal, like libertarians, and they don't know what they're talking about and stuff like that. When it's like, hang on a second, like why can't we just be friends? And why all this infighting when these corporations right here are making like tons of money off of all of our back, and we're over here fighting each other, when that just like skews our focus to not pay attention to like what's hurting all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to just kind of pick your allies and then move as far forward as you can with those people. Like, there's going to be people who criticize everything on every side. There's just so many Americans with so many varied opinions. You've got to find your allies and you've got to forge forward with them. And when you see people who you can find, opinions that can relate to yours, you try to onboard them to further causes that they like, rather than trying to struggle against the tide with somebody who is like antithetical to your cause and is going to hardline against you the harder you push.
Yeah, it's really difficult to organize in
So-
such a polarized society like we are right now. It is like so difficult to find any kind of bipartisan agreement because we're like criticizing people based on their party affiliation rather than being willing to kind of dig in further and discuss specific issues. It's like if
Yeah.
you're like a
No, yeah.
Democrat and
Yeah,
Yeah.
you called it. I can't talk to my mother about politics. I'm like, she's like, she sends me a text and it reads like MSNBC copy. Like she's like Joe Biden and she's like young and black people have elected Joe Biden and now we are forever safe and America is good. And I was like, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Joe Biden's kind of bad.
What triggered that. That fear in you is that you're getting it from your mom too. So I wanted to ask Jacob, like, in terms of organizing, right? One of our podcast members sent us a video to watch, and it really clarified for me the point of organizing, which is to basically let other people understand, as many people as possible, right, how their needs are aligned with what you're trying to accomplish. And so when people realize that our human needs are all aligned, then we can work together towards a common goal. And it seems like, um, so even though your group is called Unemployed Action, everybody should be joining this group, correct?
Yeah, we have space for our employed allies, definitely.
Right? So, I mean, you don't have to stay unemployed. You could just be sometimes unemployed, which is humans, right? When we are always between gigs or between jobs. Sometimes very few of us now have a pension job where you start it when you're a young person and you just keep moving up the way through. Most of us have periods when we're in between something, and so it would behoove us to start changing the statutory situations right now, the circumstances for everybody.
And
So what is top of your list right now in terms of your actual actions? What kind of actions are you encouraging right now?
Right now, we have today is December 5th when we're recording. The Senate goes home for the holidays on December 11th. So we have until the 10th to get any kind of action passed, any kind of, if it's Mitch's skinny bill, if it's the bipartisan agreement. We have 5 days to get people relief, and then we won't have another opportunity until a couple of months from now.
yeah, and I think it's important that we
Wow.
So-
2 months break.
Yeah.
Wow.
unpolarization is so important. Like, I think Andrew Yang was like the best unpolarizer I can think of. Like, he
Yeah.
really
It was.
temperature and unpolarized people and sought to find like common ground and all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
What I didn't get to
That
with
would
this
make
with
him
my
what, a
story.
mediator?
What I didn't get to the point of my story because we just got back to it. You know, ultimately, I'll talk to my mom and I'll be like, "Mom, look, here are the terrible things Joe Biden did. He's the architect of the private prison system, and that is just the beginning." And then she's like, "Shale, you sound like a Republican." And like, what is that supposed to be damning? I'm like, Mom, they're smart people like you. They have reasons for believing what they believe, and if you talk to them, we could figure out why we're all getting screwed by rich people together. But if you don't talk to them, we will all die.
That is true. Well, that's the crazy thing is that I feel like the younger people are teaching the older people now in this situation. It's been weird because ever since named Greta Thunberg, I think, or something like that, ever since she came out and sort of made the very strong statements that she did, right, in front of a group of adults, and basically admonishing them for leaving the world in such a terrible situation for the next generation and not caring enough. I think that it's strange that we have a reversal where, the older people are supposed to be the wise people, and instead we're finding out that, no, that's not how it works.
Like it's always like when there's a fight, like breaks out on the playground. There's always
Hey, get closer to your mic. We can't hear you.
The counselor's going like, "Okay, kids, break it up," and now the young people are going to the older people, being, "Okay, break it up."
Not even break it up, just do something, do anything, please.
I have an alarming amount of faith in their ability to change things once they are old enough to really influence things. I really think that Gen Z has this like potential that you can like see glowing off of them, that I really look forward to see if it comes out. If it's something that like blossoms the way I think it will.
I have an amazing amount of faith in Gen Z, and when you were saying that, it reminded me of how Trump administration was trying to like ban TikTok, but like the political stuff coming out of young people on TikTok is so inspiring. Like I cannot wait for our first like Gen Z legislators to take office. It's going to be beautiful.
An amazing amount of faith.
TikTok seems to be even younger than Gen Z. Those are really even sort of the youngest group of the social are on TikTok. And I've been hearing from other people that it's amazing once we get in there and actually see what's happening. But a lot of us are afraid to get on, and I feel like the boomers have really prevented us from even looking at it, because they are out there, saying, using the China fear against us. And I'm like, China fear even from the left? We're talking about, I mean, this is like
Yeah, it's shameless. It's shameless.
the flames of war to me, and my life personally more dangerous, because I mean,
From the
I
left,
want to
yeah.
point out
It's
it
shameless.
must feel bad to be Gen X right now, the way they were locked out of politics for so long, watching their generation get skipped for power because boomers were holding on to it so long that it's millennials that people are looking to now to fill slots. That's painful to watch your generation be passed over like that when you never got a say in your future either. So millennials aren't the only people who I am a millennial, but I have a lot of sympathy for Gen X and what they've had to put up with being outnumbered by the boomers for the majority of their adult lives.
100%. And I don't think that McCarthyism ever ended. I think that it just evolved. Yeah.
Well, as part of Gen X, I'm going to say that it should have been up to us to stand up to that, right, and to seize the power. But we've been too polite. We've been busy with our children and busy with the struggles of life, and and then by the time you turn around and you're like, my goodness, it's the children that are complaining to us.
It's not your fault. Like, it's
I'm
the
sorry,
numbers.
you can't hear me?
Yeah, it's the numbers.
No, it's the numbers. Faye. It's like, it's ridiculous to think there's any kind of cultural or like virtue based or like just mass personal failing of Gen X people. That's completely absurd. That doesn't happen. What happened is they're just a very small number of people who are Gen X relative to the people who are millennials and boomers. So they just have not had very much of an impact. Just because of the math of it. That's really all. There's nothing culturally wrong with Gen X.
Yeah, I mean, Obama was
it's true. True that the math is there, and also the boomers are there now. They're at an age when we need to be taking care of them at the same time that we're trying to take care of our children. Very difficult to do that well, and try to struggle for power and other things that need to happen. So I will take that. Yeah.
To all this as well, though. I mean, okay, think about I don't know if any of you guys have seen the show Social Dilemma that was on Netflix, but essentially what it talks about is the algorithms, and those algorithms are driving the people through algorithms to get into consumerism and false narratives that is out of alignment with reality. Look at our advertising, right? We're like, put this sludge in your mouth and you'll like love it because it's delicious, but really it's not nourishing to anything we need, right? Even our advertising is out of alignment with reality. And so nobody even knows what's good for them these days, right? So you have algorithms pushing for consumerism, and then you have the whole money as debt thing, and interest. When you pay off your debt, that interest was like added to this unbalanced sheet, if you will, of money coming in and money going out. And so now we have an incentivized consumerism towards non-existent money. We are, through algorithms, made to fail.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. And I'd say you're right. You guys have been too polite. Oh my God, if it were me. I mean, like I just saw the way like Andrew Yang was treated at the debates, and it was like, just, he's so kind. I think he's like just too kind for his own good.
How much less polite would Gen X be, though? I mean, Gen X will gladly walk up to you and tell you, fuck off. That's really what's supposed to happen.
It really depends on where you're. Like Gen X has a spectrum, like anything else. There are the more outgoing people in Gen X, and there are the more shy, yuppie, upbrought people in Gen X. It really is. But the point is, they never got a chance to lead based on what they were seeing happening in the world. You know, that's really where it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree they never got a chance, but I don't think it's because they did anything wrong. I don't think they could have. They just didn't have the numbers. I don't know.
You know, they split pretty much 50-50 right now without having had a chance to influence from left to right. So, you know,
I mean,
who knows where if they were in leadership power, but they'd be addressing the issues that they saw as they were moving through their lives needed to be addressed if they had had any sort of representation.
Look at real Gen X leadership in our society right now. It's great. It's like Joe Rogan. That's real Gen X leadership. They're doing great. They just don't have the reins of power. We got to give real Gen X leadership the reins of power. And like, it's, I don't, and there's, and they're not taking it because of any impoliteness, Ariel. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but this is my sense. This is kind of a silly thing to even argue, but I feel like they're doing all the right stuff and they just need more help from the younger generations.
Yang could have afforded to be a little more aggressive. Maybe not Gen X.
I don't think it. Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know if it would have made a difference.
It would have played coming out from him if he tried to be like. His personality is his personality, and the more you push yourself to behave like somebody you're not, the less authentic it's going to seem. And then where would he have been?
Look at Trump though. I mean, everybody says like, no, you can't do that, but like he railroaded each and every one of the guys.
That is authentic for Trump. There is a difference. Trump is an asshole. He enjoys being an asshole.
Yeah.
He revels in being an asshole. And this Yang would feel so terrible if he
that's true.
Way that
Except
Trump
that one time he talked about Trump not being able to run a mile. But that was just like once.
I mean, it's true.
Occasionally the dark thoughts slip out of
everybody.
You have to give some forgiveness for that. You try to hold back a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Trump can't run a mile. Who cares?
We need a
Andrew Yang, I think, specifically is the nice type of guy that you're talking about. The nice, not polite person that he is, I think, partially comes from the Taiwanese culture, which is built on a country that is has no power in the world politically. We don't even have a proper embassy anywhere because nobody recognizes us as a country that exists. And so in order for us to get things done in the world, and we do, the thing about Taiwan is a lot of things are done through Taiwan. You know, a lot of technology is developed there, shipbuilding. There's a lot of links in order to really do business in China. You use Taiwan as a stone, you know, to get across the pond, because Taiwanese people are trained up on American culture and Western cultures, and we are the link between China and a lot of other places. So Taiwan is able to accomplish all of this because we know how to wield that soft power. We know how to be polite. We know how to find, the commonalities and to really, really focus on that. So I feel like that Taiwanese culture has sort of permeated Andrew Yang's spirit also because, you know, his parents are from there. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's Taiwan, like they're the most like polite, just like friendly, kind of like not intimidating in any way, like not like forceful. And I think that really clashes with some parts of American culture that are very much like that. Like, don't mess with me, get out of my way. Like you can't tell me what to do. And like and like look,
okay,
look at football. Look at football. It's just like it's a very aggressive sport, and it's one of our national pastimes. Go ahead, Josh.
So when you think about an entrepreneur, right? Because Andrew Yang is a big entrepreneur, right? Do you think that kind of clashes with like the American like thought process of an entrepreneur? Because he's like calm and collected, and he's nice, and the idea, this myth of the American entrepreneur is like aggressive, ruthless, and cutthroat, and like that messed with his imagery that he is claiming to be an entrepreneur, but like you look at all these stories of like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Trump, and they're super cutthroat and aggressive. So his authenticity of claiming to be an entrepreneur wasn't resonating in the American public. I think
you hit something, but you might not have hit precisely the way in which that actually hurt Yang. I think the reason Yang not meeting the cultural narrative in terms of just aesthetic signaling was a big failing for his campaign was because the media, the corporate media, doesn't know how to market someone who doesn't fit into one of their pigeonholes. So they just didn't know what to do with Yang a lot of the time. Aside from deliberately trying to erase him, when they did attempt to promote him and do pieces on him in good faith, there were real failings of marketing and accessibility because they didn't know what to do. He didn't follow their playbook, and they weren't really thinking creatively.
I think the thing is there's a time to be nice and friendly and a time to like really be a little, because it's like if a robber breaks into your house, you're not going to want to serve them tea and like try to be friends with them. You know, that there's a breaking point.
As
where
an
it's
acting
like,
pacifist, I promote trying to serve your robbers tea.
but
If you can get your robbers to drink it,
I'm
like
with
they
you,
really
Mia.
trust you, right?
High five, Mia.
So you
Did
guys
want
work.
to flag on
I
the
can just actually,
last-
we've been watching a lot of Naruto, me and Zephyr.
Mhm.
Sorry, Josh. I mean, sorry. Please go ahead, Jacob. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to flag on that last conversation about Gen X and power that like we did have a Gen X president. It was Obama.
Yeah.
Obama is
Oh, yeah,
Gen
that's right.
X.
He didn't do
Kamala Harris is also Gen X. I know they're
Yeah,
not
they're not-
perfect,
they're not the
great,
best.
but I did want to flag that in that last conversation for you.
You're right. I forgot about them. I just think of them as like generational traitors. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they weren't the worst president. Like Obama wasn't their worst.
Well, I think
president.
Obama's a little older than me.
I'm a millennial on the cusp. I'll leave it
Did
to
somebody-
you.
Yeah,
I'll
Obama was,
reserve
like,
judgment.
on the cusp. He just made it, but he is
I don't know.
technically
Yeah, he really,
Gen X.
for all intents and purposes, he felt like a boomer. He worked with boomers. He talked to boomers. He talked boomerese. So maybe on a technicality. Kamala Harris is legitimately Gen X. So we'll see. We'll see what happens if there's, and maybe she will be, maybe she'll surprise us in a good way or a bad way. Who knows?
Faye did no.
She'll have plenty of opportunities if we win Georgia and she gets to be the tie-breaking vote.
Yeah. Faye, did Naruto serve as robber's tea, or were you going to say something else?
Oh, the reason I started talking about Naruto is because, Zephyr and I have been watching a lot of that because we've been really wanting to avoid all those debates between the presidents and the vice presidents and all this, because we know who we were going to vote for, right? So we're like, okay, we don't need to watch that fellow on the screen right now. And in Naruto, it's like constantly there's all these things that you fight over, right? These ninjas supposed to be fighting each other, and then they talk about what's justice, right? And so there's a whole different, what is the right thing to do? And so we talk about like he also plays these video games that are sort of American style, and in the video games, people take on different jobs. Like you can become a criminal, you can also become, social justice. You could become a cop, right? And so in the video games, the American style video games, I see it's like, you do something wrong, right? Then the police come after you and they just try to shoot you because you just kill that guy and then that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's your. I'm like,
Nice
well, what
and
happened
tidy.
to the whole the jail and taking him back to be judged by the judge?
That's
and all.
not fun.
But in
That's not
Naruto-
fun at all.
Right, but in Naruto, of course, when you get the bad guy, you don't kill him. You tie him up, and then you're like, you need to sort out your life, thinking about what you did, and like be judged by your
Right,
peers,
but
and so on and so forth. And
that-
so it's
that-
like,
that's-
I'm like,
but-
why are
but-
they
but-
more democratic than us? So
But you also,
Like,
but
Yeah.
let me say, you also
What's
don't put
what's wrong
that.
with this? Like,
You also don't put that guy up in a 5-star hotel. You just say there's a difference, right?
Yeah.
no,
I-
but you might like. I've heard of in the United
have
States.
a lot less robbers in the first place, so we don't really have to worry about that as much as we start respecting each other on the level that I think we need to. I think
Yeah,
that
that's-
you eliminate
Some are-
a lot of those social problems with a UBI that
Yeah.
not like
100%.
eliminate, but like reduce to the point of being statistical anomalies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like if there's
you don't
not
wanna
an
put
economic
people
reason to rob, every robber in your house is in it for the love of the game, and then maybe you want to have a conversation with them over tea. Maybe you do.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If they can plan a good heist and they're just in
Yeah.
it for the love
and-
of the
They're
heist,
a cat burglar
that's
at that point.
fascinating.
They're there because you have an important painting, and they're going to tell you that if you look behind it, there's a secret code. So
National
it.
treasure stuff.
But I mean, like, when I find my son playing these video games and stuff, I'm always like, if somebody commits that is not a reason to go out and kill them. That's not a reason to go.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like
But
they're still a human being with
Right.
like people who care about them, and you have to find
Yeah.
out why they're doing these things, and maybe
A good,
not,
I mean, a good perspective, I think, maybe. I don't know if Zephyr would get this at his age, but maybe in a few years, like, the when all you have is a hammer idiom is great for teaching a sort of the biases of the framework,
Yeah,
you're playing a video
everybody's-
game, you interact with the world through movement, control of space, and weapons. So when someone commits a crime, the police interact with them through movement, control, space, and weapons, because that is the game's reality. So that's what you get, and it's important that kids don't extrapolate that to
it's
the broad
reality.
reality.
Like,
But yeah,
because in real reality we're a lot more careful and mindful,
Mhm.
and this is the part that pisses me off the most, right? In a game, when you lose, you have like another life, or you get a second chance at it. But in entrepreneurship, if you lost all of your seed, it's like you're out on the streets now and you don't get chance number 2. And I see like the world without UBI is like you losing a game and then your whole council just explodes and you can never play again. Now the world with UBI is like, okay, continue. Yes. The world without UBI for people who are in generational poverty is like going into an arcade place without a quarter, and people are telling you you're too lazy to play the game, but you don't have your first quarter. It's not going to work.
Well, Ariel, usually you are more gritty and realistic than I am about these. In this case, I have to push back in our real life, because this is what cops are trained to do. We need to is because they're going out there and playing these games as if, because they've got these tools. So if this is the only tool you have and you've been taught to shoot to kill, anything a person does, the perpetrator, who you don't even know is guilty yet, the person you've come up close to, if they don't listen to you, you now have the right to shoot them dead. I mean, for just not obeying an immediate command. Sleepy, they didn't hear you. Could be anything, any reason they didn't respond to you appropriately. But we teach them to shoot to kill. And so they need to be given other types of weapons. Like, I think we should buy taco trucks for the police department. So I'm part of this whole taco Trojan thing where people should just be given,
A lot of people with disabilities
Yes,
are often,
disabilities get
accidentally
shot.
targeted by police. Tristan, being nonverbal, would not be able to respond to a police command in a way that they demanded quickly. If he were to say, get out of the house and be wandering the street, he would probably look pretty strange to them, and they would probably react in a very just awful way. There's a deaf person who lives around us who was once arrested because he couldn't communicate with the police officers that he was deaf, and he ended up spending the night in jail, even though he was just trying to explain to them what was going on using his hands and whatever communication he could get by. So there's a lot of reasons why it is a terrible idea to give somebody a gun who is not necessarily obligated to go through a specific set of safeguards, let's
Right.
say.
Because
Yeah,
they're
the gun
just
is your last
enforced-
resort. The non-lethal options are your first resort.
Right. They can't be judge, jury, and executioner. The enforcement is the enforcement. They're not the jury and they're not the judge. And that's the
That's
thing.
probably better for there to be less guns in the situation at all. My
100%.
is no gun.
And I think that's what's so beautiful about because UBI is not your judge either, right? Because if we don't want the police to be our judge and get a say in whether we go to jail or not, because they're biased. They have their biases, because I heard that sometimes like police in their reports, they get accolades for the more people that they can put in jail or the more crime that they can stop. So what are the incentives? And some of the incentives for these welfare programs is that how many people did you make sure didn't get it? So we save our money. So it's like a UBI is like, no. We make sure that no one's left behind. These programs, they're like, I'm gonna create this labyrinth of like paperwork and like confusing words to make sure, or even if you do qualify, we're just going to make sure that it just annoys you and bothers you so much that you're like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, when UI
How
was
do you
first
feel about
introduced, it was,
that, Jacob?
yeah, I was just going to pick up on that. When unemployment insurance was first introduced, it was debated whether it should be state or federally run. And proponents of the federal UI system were concerned that states would enact stingy benefits with complicated loopholes, like was just discussed, specifically to exclude predominantly Black workers from the system. And it still holds today when we see that northern states generally have stronger benefits and longer benefit periods than southern states. Even under the CARES Act, we saw Massachusetts was able to cover 2/3 of eligible workers, while Florida covered less than 10%. I got that stat from March of this year.
Yeah,
So
that's cheating people.
yeah, so I wanted to bring that up to the panel here and see where y'all fell on federalization versus state run. Like, one of the concerns about federalizing the program that I've heard in academic circles in this space is that if it were federalized today, then the Trump administration would be the ones pulling the strings there. And by having it state run, you do give states more flexibility and the people in those states more direct control over how those benefits are allocated, the systems that decide how you get them. But the federal government also has the opportunity to create minimums and safeguards that you have to meet in order to get, say, federal funding to amplify that program.
I think the big disadvantage
So,
of
may I?
oh sure, go for it.
Go ahead, Shale.
Okay.
I'm going to go second.
I think the big disadvantage of municipalities and states running smaller UBI programs is, of course, that they're not empowered to print money, to create money through the Federal Reserve the way that the federal government is. And although you cited many legitimate and real logistical advantages, I'm not sure that that they amount to on net that single advantage that federalization has. That's just kind of my broad take, you know.
It's my personal opinion that it should be like multi-layered. So we should have a federal base, and then states can take up their own UBIs to help even out in areas that have different, income rates, have different needs, have different, rent. If in those specific areas, you would want to have a higher UBI for the people living in the area to be able to continue to survive. But the federal government would be responsible for providing like a base, just a safety net that no one can fall underneath. And from there, you would work on the details of trying to meet specific needs of specific people in communities.
Right. Kind of. I think that this, if the states bungle something up and people don't get any unemployment, then that federal 600 they're not seeing either, and that is terrible. It's like I don't know, but like I really feel cheated if I was one of those people that the states bungled something up, and the feds could have gave me the 600, but because of the states messed up, I ain't get it. Like, I would not be happy.
Yeah, we saw this with the states having the ability to opt into Obamacare and the exchanges. There are still dozens of states that never opted in, and I fear that the same thing could happen with a with more of a state-controlled universal basic income or unemployment insurance system.
Oh, yeah. UBI should never be through. UBI should just be unconditional no matter what. It's like if you have a social security number, if you are a citizen, that is that. Unless it's like prison or something
Some
like that.
people,
Yeah.
Some
Some
people even believe you shouldn't even need to have a social security number, that, that any in our nation should be able to receive it. So universal really means universal to most people who are advocates.
I thought a social security number was just automatically given to you no matter what. I don't
Nope.
know. It's
You have to apply.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
when I had a child, they give you a form and you can fill it out, but some parents don't.
Oh, man.
Some people are afraid of being tracked, or they don't want their kids tracked or whatever.
Oh, what a
and they just
nightmare
don't
for
have
those
a social
kids.
security number until.
Oh, wow.
And same
Okay,
thing for
yeah.
people who are newly immigrated. They may or may not receive one or go get one if they're afraid of they're afraid of ICE, or some reason they may or may not do all of those things. So
Right. Yeah.
I was actually going to talk about how federalizing the system would be the greatest benefit to a federal system that is consistent, is that you can move around the country and you don't have to worry about losing some benefit. And that's actually one of the hardest things that's going on for people right now, especially during a pandemic or during unemployment season. I mean, it's hard enough that you don't have money to move, right? But even if you were to be able to gather up the money to move, now you have to contend with trying to reapply for every single thing that you've ever done. You have to get a new driver's license. You have to get a new, you have to get new everything, including your SNAP benefits. They don't transfer with you. You have to prove that they have stopped in the other place. Then you have to prove that you've moved to this state for real, then you're not moving away, right? Then you have to prove, there's so many levels of things that you must prove, and this is how people fall through the cracks. The cracks are so wide because of having,
each state has so many different criteria for even laws, right? So while you're doing all that, you got to learn the new laws of the state. Are you required extra paperwork or whatever?
I think here's where we can conservatives and liberals can get along with just a floor that everyone can have, is because if there's one thing conservatives and Republicans hate is bureaucracy and paperwork and all of this stuff gumming up the works. So we say okay, everybody gets it, and you don't have all this stuff getting in the way, and of course I can agree with a Republican or a conservative that paperwork is annoying. Having to worry about files and bureaucrats and caseworkers and stuff like that. It's leave me alone. Just give me what I need. Let me do with what I need with it, and just get out of here. It's
another thing that
I think these programs should transfer with you if you do move, even if the states have some control over how they administer things that you had in another transfer with you. The status of your being married. I'm married to any state that I go to, I'm still married or not married, simple thing. Or so it should be the same thing with unemployment or other things like that, so that there's less barrier to moving. If the only way to do that is to federalize a program, I'd be actually for it. I'm sick and tired of 50 states telling me I can't cross a border without all of these horrible things happening to me and my family. A lot of people have certifications for professions in the state that they're in. So if you're a professional, if you're a doctor, if you're a real estate agent, there's so many different things that need certification. A contractor for a house, you work with your hands, but you have to recertify to become a contractor again in order to go to another state. And so you can't even perform your stated profession without going through all of these steps again once you get to the new state. So that's my biggest concern in terms of federalizing any sort of programs.
So you have to redo the entire tax system? That's just the tax on everybody, right? The whole thing you're talking about is taxation. The whole thing you're talking about is taxation, right? You're you have to go to a different state.
No, it's not taxation. But
well, you got to pay for credentials.
It's not taxation, but how taxes are being used.
No, but you're getting taxed to do the same thing in a different state. It's just a tax, right? So it's just the way of the state to gain more money, right? Am I wrong?
Oh, okay. You look at it as a tax.
It's not only that, but how they control things.
Well, yeah, it's control and taxation. They need the money. They need the money through taxation. Different ways of taxing the people.
It's a competition between the states, people and resources, but not just taxation. I mean, it controls people's lives. For example, family court, right? If you're engaged now in the middle of family court battle, if you're in the middle of a divorce, for 2 or 3 years, you definitely are not moving anywhere because you are now locked down to where you're having your court case. If you leave that state, how are you going to fight your court case? You can't move that jurisdiction.
I was looking at it from a
The judges will lock you
work
down
aspect, like right. So I go from one state to another state. If I'm just like a pipe, like a whatever, a plumber, and I have to get different certifications for that state, for this state. So I'm looking at it as from a taxation standpoint. I'm sorry.
Like the states just want money.
I understand. You're saying that there's just a matter of money. You can talk about it money like, oh, judges. So you have to fight your legal case here. That means you're going to spend your money. But it's also true. The SNAP benefits go to the other state, right? So however many people you have in your Medicaid system, you get paid for each of those people. Just like a public school, they want to keep all of their students. Each student that is missing that day, right, doesn't get their money. So you're just talking about it in those terms. You can take everything and bring it down to money and resources.
Like doing a researching in a university that's in another state, I'm paying like 5 times more than I would in my own state. So they're like gouging me in that aspect. So I guess I look at it from that standpoint. It's like, well, if I just go for another state, like I'm getting charged like, instead of like going to my home state where I'm like 20,000 to stay in my home state, like they're gouging me like 40,000 a year to go to a university out of state.
Oh yeah, I paid out of state tuition.
So
it was
that
a nightmare.
speaks to.
Oh yeah, out
So
of
that
state
speaks
tuition?
to the competition between the 50 states.
Yeah, so it keeps competition high, but it's still
saying that
outrageous.
the taxes, it's all about.
Yeah, I think that the competition mindset is a mindset of scarcity, and a collaboration mindset is a mindset of abundance. That's why we see so many other countries that don't go through the same kind of like struggles and worries and like headaches that we do, because we all look at each other like competitors instead of as collaborators, and that gets us all like stressed and lonely and freaking out about our bills and shit like that. Pretty bad.
Well, like the thing that I found interesting was like, and this is something that I don't want to talk about, the unemployment thing. What did the federal government do for students who graduated early on in the pandemic and couldn't find a job, and they're like left in limbo the entire time, where they couldn't apply for like certain benefits, unemployment benefits, and they couldn't find a job? Like what Jacob, this is to you.
That happened in 08.
Yeah, what did they actually do for those students that were like couldn't really get nothing?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but this does come back to something that was mentioned earlier, the job seekers allowance. It would be another program for that students would qualify for, because students are usually not qualified for things like SNAP and unemployment, and something like the job seekers allowance would specifically be targeted at young people who do not have an extensive job history, because that's another thing. Like, you have to be able to pay into the unemployment system to draw from it. You have to have had income in the base year, which is usually like the 2 years prior. That's where they figure out. I mean, the equations are stupidly complicated, but yeah, you have to have been able to pay in order to draw from it. So the job seekers allowance would be a possible way to get around that.
Well,
essentially, there's a lot of people being paid to do math. There's a significant amount of people being paid to do math, and they're the ones who make the money, but not for who the money is supposed to be going to. Like, why don't we just skip all the math? Let's skip all these extra jobs, right? And just like use that energy not towards math, but maybe, fixing systems that are broken, getting food in people's bellies, getting education in people's minds. Like, why don't we figure out ways where we're not gouging everybody money, and we can travel and learn? Because I think part of even just historically, people went on pilgrimages to like travel and see different lifestyles and have their adventure to see
Because
that like
we have really crappy leaders in this country. I mean, it would always amaze me that I'd go hosteling to like different states here and there from time to time, and it would be fun. And I would talk to like foreigners from like Australia and England who have seen more of the United States than US citizens have. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, wow, are we that trapped? Like our lives like this, thing. And I think it's like our government is supposed to be like working for us, for our lives to be happy and enriched and good and stress free, and they're doing the opposite. Of course, because tourists have money, so they're happy enough to like get them and make sure they have a good time here. But what about us? It's like you know
I don't know how long we have our guest for. Are you able to stay past 4, or should we start wrapping up now and let you get some links and promotions, any plugs you want to make, that kind of thing?
I was looking at the clock. I'd like to bounce out at 4.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
well, would you
respect our
like
guest
to
time
give
and
us
also
your
our original stated
website?
purpose.
Sure. Go ahead. Mia.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've put a lot of the website information for you up here, but I would love to hear if you have a social media or a website that you would like people to join you at.
Yeah, so the best collection of resources, including if you're struggling to find things like SNAP benefits, would be extendpua.org. That is our sister organization, and we refer people to their website all the time. We've helped them build out their resource document. So if you're in need of any kind
One
of
more time for
assistance,
me. Extend.
yep, extendpua.org, like
Uh-huh.
pandemic unemployment assistance.
.org. Nice. Okay.
Yep, and let me the Twitter handle for my primary organization, Unemployed Action, is at Unemployed ED Act on Twitter. And we are on Facebook, where we are 16,000
Unemployed
strong.
ACT.
Yep, at Unemployed Act. And
this
you
is
can
on
just
Twitter?
search. Yep. And we would love to have you join us in our Facebook group. You can just search Unemployed Action on Facebook and we'll come up there. I know
Okay,
Facebook isn't
thank
the
you so
best
much
place
for
to refer
joining us.
people to, but gotta use
Oh,
the
yeah,
organizing tools
yeah.
that are at our
That's right.
disposal. And
That's
Facebook
exactly
is where the
right.
people are.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Just one last question for you, actually. I have one last question to ask our guests, which is, I know that you focused on unemployment action, but I wonder, have you thought about maybe broadening the definition to include caregivers? Because this is a serious issue for many women who are employed in the home, not considered employed currently. If I'm taking care of my children, how can unemployment benefits be? Can we expand the definition of work to include caring for people in your home?
I would love to see that personally. Yes, we need to extend benefits to caregivers and just recognize that caregiving is work. Like, we need to expand the definition of work in order to capture these people.
Mm-hmm. We have
Then
someone
you
who
have me
says
signed
that.
on
Yeah,
100%.
we have someone who does
Yeah,
an entire
like-
podcast from that perspective, who frequently comes on this show. So yeah.
Yeah, we need to expand the definition of work, get motherhood in there for sure, parenthood. That is a massive, unrecognized labor pool, and they're doing some of the most important work in the nation.
For sure.
They need to be compensated for that. So I would
I
absolutely.
want a clip of that, Ariel.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for asking that question, Faye.
Is
Really
it
close to
which?
home.
Go. What
Well,
you say?
Mia, do you want to also do your sign off now? Mia, are you also ready to do your sign off?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you said somebody else. My name is Mia. I do Humanity Hangs every Tuesday and Friday. I do this obviously every Saturday, and I try to pop in here and there. I'm going to be working with Boyce on the Low in the future here, and I've got some other exciting things that I can't wait to be able to tell people about, but they're still in the planning stage, so keep an ear out. And yeah, that's pretty much me. I'm at Mia Songbird on Twitter and at Mia Songbird, or no, just Mia Songbird on Frey.world. That's it. That's the spiel. I'm done.
One of these days, I'm going to have to ask you to explain Frey.world. My name is Faye.
Faye, you got to come closer to your mic.
Faye Koo on Facebook. And Joshua, are you?
Yeah, Josh Eastlick on
If
Twitter.
Joshua is not, there we go.
Yeah, Josh Eastlick on Twitter, and then the Joshua Eastlick on YouTube, and Joshua Eastlick on Facebook. Let's go.
Okay, Faye.
Yeah, so my Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch are all Tisdoney, TISDONEY. If anyone wants to send money my way so I can be a little more comfortable while being in Georgia to help, I'm scouting for people to onboard. I want to also do investigative research on the ground level. I think we need that kind of journalism. And additionally, I'm filming some stuff for my documentary, and I could really just use any and all help. That would be great. My Venmo is at Art by Doney, ARTBYDONEY. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing what's going on with my own eyeballs.
Faye, make sure you put your Venmo in the credits via Bart, our SEO robot.
I'll go ahead.
All right,
and
Ariel,
add
and
my.
then
Oh, okay. So you can find me at Ariel's on Twitter, and then you can also go to youtube.com/revolutionary thinking for my YouTube page.
So, and if I could plug my personal Twitter as well. I got the organization and forgot to plug myself. It's Trina Higgy on Twitter. So TRYNAHYGGE. It's actually
Trina
pronounced
Higgy.
Hoogie, but yeah.
Trina Higgy. That's a fun one to say. It feels good.
Yeah, I like it, and I like reminding people about Higgy or Hoogie, the Danish subculture of just trying to find contentment and happiness. And I think it really plugs into universal basic income. That is a means of bringing more contentness to people's life, taking some of that stress out so we can all kind of relax and do the things we want to do with the people we want to be with.
I would love for you to come back and talk about that sometime. That is a great topic. So.
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you again for coming. It's great to meet you.
Thank you, Jacob. We'll talk more in the regular unemployed actions.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Ariel. I want to get you plugged in and get you more involved.
Great talk. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Mia. And of course, thank you, Shale, for holding the ship together.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Thanks.
So Shale, you can take us
Kim, by the way, for being in the audience and talking to us on YouTube. Appreciated.
I missed the first part of what you said. Who?
Kim Woods is in our YouTube channel right now. She's been chatting with me throughout the thing. I think I'm going to start monitoring our YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, please. We should. I try to. I'm always trying to keep everyone's audio balanced and make sure the stream doesn't die and stuff. So, yeah, please.
Did everybody?
The stream's still on right now, so I'm going to say I don't think I've said goodbye yet. Does anybody not say goodbye?
No, wait.
Did you say goodbye?
Before we say goodbye, I have the finished 3D printed product to show everyone.
Oh yeah, let's see. Let's take a look.
It is.
Oh, the boss himself.
Nice.
In brilliant cyan.
And math right there, if you can.
That's
see
beautiful.
It.
Beautiful. Well, okay. He has to acknowledge this piece if you tweet it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tweeted it while it was creating it, but now I'm gonna tweet the finished product.
Yeah,
it's
for
like,
sure.
Look, this is it's like
beautiful.
Put their arms
I love it. I love it.
It's like, hey, here's a buddy right here.
Are you going to paint it?
I don't know how
No.
to paint it. I don't have
If
the.
you send it to me, I will paint it for you, and if you give me the shipping fee, I'll send it back to you. I can do that. I have acrylics. It would come out beautifully. He would look amazing.
The beautiful
maybe-
thing.
Do you have any extra acrylics? He's sending me. I don't know. Yeah.
If you want me to send you acrylics, you might as well buy them in a small package for yourself.
Yeah.
Like the shipping
Yeah.
and handling alone will make it so. that
Yeah, that's true. So maybe where do you just like in an art store or something?
Yeah, art store, or you can order it off anywhere. Like anywhere, there's acrylics. You can go to Walmart and find acrylics.
Yeah.
So it's
So cool. It even like got like all the details. It's like it's so precise, you know.
You know what I want to do?
That-
I want to get a
Very
3D
cool.
printer, like a big 3D printer, and I want to take that, scale it up to be like 6 feet tall, like the man himself, and then just use that as a Christmas tree.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe put a crown or a star on his head, maybe some antlers.
Yeah, I remember when I was in the
garden.
That would be nice.
I remember when I was
Put it in the
at
window.
the Long Beach convention where most of them were speaking and Biden didn't show up. But then like people were taking their pictures as a cardboard cutout of Biden, and then I was like, wow, that's like as deep as his personality goes. It is it's like it's that deep. It's just like this one-dimensional thing. It's like I'm
Okay, well, I stopped the stream.
Oh, okay, I should cut my stream.
I stopped the stream because it feels like.
Yeah, well, goodbye, everybody. My Twitter is SHAELRILEY, Shale Riley on Twitter. SHAEL.
Yeah.
RILEY.
Yeah, Shale.
TWITTER. Goodbye. Thank you.